Hello, and welcome to another in our series of films, The Printmakers Studio. In this we visit Ruth Thomas, who is renowned for her collagraph printmaking. Ruth takes us through the process of making what turns out to be one of her rare landscape prints. Ruth has been a printmaker for over 20 years. She is a member of the Royal Cambrian Academy and has exhibited widely in the UK, France, Spain and the States. The film is in 3 parts. Firstly, Ruth talks a little about her work and sets out the proposal for the print The Clwydian Hills. In the second video, Ruth works on making the collagraph plate. And then finally we join Ruth as she inks and prints the plate. The Regional Print Centre is very pleased that Ruth has agreed to take part and allow us to see her at work. Thank you, Ruth.
Hi, well I thought it would be useful if I started by showing you some of my collagraph printing plates. I've been making collagraphs for nearly 30 years now, and over that time my work has changed and my approach to collagraph has changed. As the name suggests, a collagraph is a printing plate made from collage. So this is an early plate, and I was working quite figuratively at the time, making images of heads and people wearing hats. And the sorts of materials I was using to make the printing plate are fabrics, different fabrics, cotton, dishcloth, felt here. I've cut into the plate in places to make lines, cotton thread around the nose and here, bits of tissue paper, glue and paint to make a texture, and really I'm making a surface of textures which will hold the ink when it comes to inking and printing. The surface on which I'm gluing everything is matte board, and I like matte board because it can be cut relatively easily to create a shaped plate. You're not limited to the rectangle. Yeah, same sorts of materials in this plate here. This one here is obviously largely rectangular, just with part of the plate protruding from the picture, which I quite like, which is quite fun. One thing about collagraph or using collage is that it's fairly easy to make alterations to the plate. So for instance, I had to correct this eye, and so it was fairly easy to remove the eye, as it were, and redo that section there so that it worked correctly. Other things I've used, so I've sort of moved on from making pictures using materials to using the materials for themselves. So I've done quite a lot of work with gloves and with children's clothes and adult dresses. The glove is obviously quite a thick thing to glue down onto the printing plate. What I did was take the back off the glove, so it's just one layer thick. And I also built up the surface around the glove because it's better if there's not too much difference between one area and another, too much difference in height. And then I spent, I've used a lot of natural materials in my work as well, such as bark. This is bark from a silver birch tree, which was was a tree that was lying on the ground already rotting and peeling. So I took pieces of the bark away and scraped the back off to get them as thin as possible. But I think this was quite a tricky plate to print because of the thickness of the bark. I've got a lot of circular plates, so this is marram grass, and when you're inking a plate, there's quite a lot of rubbing the ink in, wiping the ink away again, and so something like marram grass, which is very thin, will easily pull off the plate. So what I've done here is apply tissue all over the plate, pieces of tissue all over the plate to cover the plate and make it a really strong plate to work with. This one here, print is actually in the background. I hope you can see it. So this is sycamore seeds, and although well, I don't think I've said actually, I generally seal my plates with white emulsion and then a layer of acrylic varnish. And although I did that with this particular plate, it was a waste of time because the emulsion doesn't adhere very well to something like seeds and leaves, so it's best really just to use the varnish. Yeah, this is based on a spiral fossil form. I've done quite a lot of spirals, and I've also got the print for this one in the background, but it may be too dark for you to see very clearly. So this is made using Scots pine needles, and again, as with the marram grass, I've applied tissue over the surface of the plate to really make sure that the pine needles don't pull off the plate during the inking stage. It's really important to make sure that things are really well glued to the plate, because if anything starts to lift off when you're inking, you can be sure that ink will get underneath those little areas. You'll get too much ink at that point, and it will spread out across the paper when you come to print. This is made using thistles, and again, all the materials have to be thoroughly dry before they are stuck down onto the plate. So these were dry thistle heads which I put through the press before attempting to glue them onto the plate. And I love the leaves, those spiky leaves. This is a large plate using grass clippings. I've used them to make it's actually like it's just a fragment of handwriting. So I've soaked the grass clippings in glue and used them to create the shape of the letters. There's such a lot of energy in these grass clippings. I love using them. I like using unusual materials. I was fortunate to be given some snakeskin, shed snakeskin, from some quite exotic venomous snakes, and it's a really fragile material when it's dry, but once it's stuck down onto the mount board and sealed, it actually makes a really tough plate. And what I love about collagraph is the subtlety of the textures. So there's not very much depth to this area here, well, any of it really, but it's surprising how much detail you can pick up in the print. The texture of that snakeskin will print really well. More unusual things. These are the casts of fanworms collected from the beach. So these are tubes that the worms make using grains of sand and little bits of shell and bound together with worm mucus. And so they're tubes that the fanworms live in, but they will be washed up on the strand line, and you can collect them. If they're allowed to dry out, they're very fragile and will just crumble. But if they are still moist when you collect them, they can be glued down onto a car plate and sealed. And again, it's a really, really tough plate then. This plate's made using dead spiders, all collected in the house, but it took me about 2 years to collect them. They were all dead when I found them. And this is my most recent printing plate, which I've made using Carborundum. Carborundum and metallic card. So the Carborundum holds the ink really well. If you're using a dark ink, it will create a really rich dark tone. And the metallic card will repel the ink. The ink will wipe off really cleanly off those areas. It's quite a nice contrast. And these plates go with that last plate. These are rooks made with feathers and mount board, sealed with emulsion and varnish, just as with the others. When I first started making collagraphs with the figurative pieces, the heads, I would just use that one plate. And when I first started, I just used a colour that was almost black, so quite a rich dark colour. And as time moved on, I introduced more colour into the plate. So for instance, with this one, I still was just using one plate, but I'd apply different colours to different areas. And by the time with this one, for instance, there's about 4 plates in this piece. So I started thinking about building the image up in layers, and that's true of this piece as well. There's about 5 or 6 plates in this one. Right, well, I'm going to start to make a printing plate and show you how to create your own collagraph.